That's him, officer. Number 3. He's the worst of the worst. He's the one with the annoying game design. I'm sure of it. There are a lot of contenders for TF2's worst weapon. The Righteous Bison with its ridiculously slow projectile speed and minimal damage. The Scorch Shot with its fire and forget spam. The Razorback for completely shutting down a core counter to a class. But I want to throw a new hat into the ring. The Sydney Sleeper. Now I can already see the comments piling up. How on earth could any sane man think the Sydney Sleeper is one of the worst weapons in the game? Well, if you were to look at the Sydney Sleeper from the perspective of it being an actual weapon, yeah, it's not bad, not that good, but it's clearly capable of culling a couple of people. Looking at its stats shows a sea of blue, a 25% faster charge rate, apply Girardi on charged hit, and 2 incorrectly listed downsides being no headshots and no random crits. Something all the sniper's primaries can't do. Golly gee willikers, maybe I overreacted. Or maybe the Sydney Sleeper is one of the largest new player traps in the game. Equipped with not only mind-altering game design choices, but flat-out wrong information. Before we dive too far into that though, what do I mean by design? I recommend watching this video to get a more detailed explanation, but the main ideas of TF2's weapons are, do they make a practical or logical sense to use, fulfilling a niche that needs to be filled, and is that niche enough to make the weapon unique? Quick example being the direct hit. You trade splash damage for increased single target damage. It's a niche that's needed in the game that creates a unique function and weapon. And then we have the Sydney Sleeper, which has its own rather perplexing and puzzling problem with these proposed properties. The niche the Sydney Sleeper has is the ability to be a much more supportive sniper rifle, coating enemies in Girardi, allowing teammates to take them out while nerfing your own ability to do it. It creates this weird middleman situation which removes the reliability and consistency other sniper rifles have. You aren't relying on your skill to kill enemies, but your teammates.
Let's have a go at it! Shut up!
If you're a newer player who gets as much head as the average Discord user, you'd be pushed to play with this weapon for practice. You can't headshot, but the faster charge rate means you'll be reaching full damage body shots slightly faster with the Girardi coating still benefiting you as long as you land your shots. Only issue comes when you want to switch to sniping with something a bit more serious such as stock. Aiming is 50% of Sniper's gameplay loop, and practicing by prioritizing poorly placed piss shots with the Sydney Sleeper just builds up bad habits. And then there's dealing with Sniper's biggest issue, Sniper. Sniper fights are entirely based on speed, and I don't just mean the speed at which you aim, I also mean the movement speed as well. We've all seen the sniper salsa before, where 2 snipers scope in, stray side to side, and occasionally shoot, hopefully landing that second scope shot. With the Sydney Sleeper equipped though, every single sniper fight you take puts you at an immediate disadvantage, and without being sneaky, you'll find yourself dying a lot to
dealing 68 damage.
Welcome to Team Fortress 2. After 9 years in development, hopefully it will have been worth the wait.
But this isn't the only way the Sydney Sleeper screws over newer players, as it has by far the worst stat explanation in the entire game, with a lot of misinformation and omission that just makes the CIA look good. Starting with the big one, not many people know this, but the Sydney Sleeper can actually extinguish teammates. Massive change to the weapon which further cements itself as a support sniper rifle, but you'd be hard pressed to find a mention of this magnificent marvel since it's a hidden stat. The fact you can extinguish teammates doesn't really change the impact or viability of the Sydney Sleeper, but it shows the lack of thought in its design and usage. It's such a tacked on thing that even Valve knew showing it wouldn't change much with it. Even the Sydney Sleeper's most basic stat, being the faster charge rate, isn't entirely true. This issue can be chopped up to TF2 as a whole when it comes to passing information, but all sniper rifles have an innate 1.3 second charge delay when scoped in. This typically isn't an issue with literally any other sniper rifle, since you would still be capable of firing a base 150 headshot within that time frame. but you need to wait for it for the Sydney Sleeper, alienating the Sydney Sleeper even further from the other sniper rifles, leading to even more of a downward spiral. You might think this is a tad bit nitpicky, but it's important when you realize how the Girardi coating mechanic actually works. It's possible to land a scope shot, but not coat the enemy in Girardi, if the weapon is fired during that initial 1.3 second charge delay period. The description of the stat makes it seem like the minimum coat time is 2 seconds when it's possible for it to be 0. Real talk, I fucking hate the Nature's Call stat. Why is it called that? Why is it listed as some sort of RPG ability? Am I playing RuneScape here? What the fuck? Personal preference aside though, gotta enjoy the conflicting information this stat provides, informing people that the weapon can headshot, but just mini crit, rather than just being incapable of headshotting at all. Seriously, the line about the Sydney Sleeper being incapable of headshotting should be removed completely and replaced with headshots mini crit to clear up any confusion. Especially when the Sydney Sleeper can still legitimately pull off a normal headshot, kill icon and all in-game. TF2 also prides itself on its customization. There are a ton of weapons and loadouts that you can use to mix and match with one another, so I always found it incredibly weird how this stat solely promotes and relies on Girardi. Outside of the item sets, of which the Sydney Sleeper belongs to, I can't think of any other item, weapon, stat, or anything the likes that forcibly locks and requires you to use a particular weapon with it so deliberately, going not just against Sniper's philosophy like before, but TF2's as a whole. As for those concerned with the viability of it, using Girardi with the Sydney Sleeper isn't even good, it's rather shit. The lack of both quickscope headshots, a mid-range option, and that charge delay means you're entirely reliant on hitting enemies with your melee, which is probably the Bushwhacker, which will kill you faster than spending a minute in Chernobyl. Is there any redeeming qualities about the Sydney Sleeper though? Well, it's not an entirely useless weapon from a stat perspective compared to something like the Bison or Thompson. Hell, the thing is banned in most comp formats, and the concept of the support-based sniper rifle is rather unique and interesting, if not a little flawed in execution, going against Sniper's design as a whole and even TF2's customization rules. That being said, maybe I was a bit too harsh on it though. Surely there's a weapon that has an even worse design philosophy attached to it. Nah, Sydney Sleeper is still the worst.